Mindful Education, the 4th episode of the 4th season of Steven Universe. And I'm going to reinstate the spoiler warning for this review because this is the kind of episode that I can't really explain. That I can't really talk about and convey the same meaning that the episode was trying to convey itself. And I'm not going to try to be cute, I'm not going to try to be funny, because I also feel like it would be doing a disservice to this episode to try to, in any way, alter the message that it was trying to convey, the emotion that it was trying to invoke in the audience. Because when it comes right down to it, this episode wasn't about what literally happened in the episode. It was about what the episode was able to make you feel. Whether or not the episode was able to make you feel what the characters were feeling. And it's because of that I feel that people are going to get more or less out of this episode depending on how they relate to the subject matter. If you're coming into this episode looking to learn something brand new about the characters that we never heard about before, that we've never once been able to suppose about them in the past, then this isn't the episode for you. Yeah, we learned that Steven bottles stuff up and doesn't talk about his problems, but that's something we've known for a long time, that we've been able to pick up on throughout the show so far. Yes, we learned that being part of a fusion means that you have somebody else there to support you, but that's just common sense. No, this episode is much more about getting into the heads of the characters and making you feel what they feel so that you have sort of a baseline going forward for what I think is going to be an important arc this season. And that is Steven finally coming to terms with his mother and who she was and what she did and the fact that he is quite literally all that exists of her. That she is gone because of him and that it is his responsibility to carry on her legacy in some form. And this is stuff that's been weighing on Steven for a long time. He talked about it with the cool kids back in Joyride, and recently it has become much more evident that something was coming to a head in this regard. And even though we've known for a while that Steven internalizes a lot, it's very cool to see in this episode that that stuff is finally catching up with him and he's finally going to have to deal with it. And I like that Connie was involved in this as well, that she had a problem that she was internalizing, that she bottled up and it was affecting her, and that we got to see that once it came out in the open and once she dealt with it, things were better for her. Foreshadowing that that is what Steven is going to have to do to come to terms with the things that are affecting him. And I'm not going to point out exactly what those things were. I'm going to touch on one of them, and I'm not going to really talk about the others because first of all, they're obvious, and second of all, the episode flat out tells you what they are, so just go watch the episode. You should watch the episode anyway, even if you're someone who, for whatever reason, watches my reviews without watching the episodes. This is definitely one that you should watch, or else you're just not going to get out of it what you were supposed to get out of it. It's just not going to happen. But the big one, at the end, we get to see that Rose herself is something that is affecting Steven, that his feelings for Rose herself are something that's affecting him. And this has been played off for comedy in most cases throughout the show, but now it's finally becoming a serious issue. I thought it was very cool that it was the fact that he was fused as part of Stevonnie that brought all this to the surface, and it was the fact that Connie was feeling something similar that brought all of this to the surface. We also got a really interesting reference back to keeping it together, which is really interesting. It looks like the reason that Garnet wasn't able to act against the first cluster gem that she saw was because it was affecting her components emotionally, and they were seeing the situation as being much more hopeless than it actually was. Because we learned in this episode that one of the drawbacks to being a cross-gem fusion is that the discourse that the other component or components are feeling can cause the fusion to see things that aren't there. And then there was the song where Garnet meditates with Stevonnie and sings about so many things. This song had so many layers to it. I really should do an entire video talking about this song, but I'm going to try to break down exactly what made it so awesome. Not only was it melodically and lyrically very good, it's consistent with the quality of songs throughout the entire show. Not only was it sung by Garnet, which automatically makes it a little bit more awesome than it already would have been. Not only do we finally get to hear Stevonnie sing, which was fantastic, but you have this song that's all about getting to know yourself and loving yourself and appreciating yourself, but because it was being sung by fusions about themselves. It also had this built-in layer to it that one of the ways you can learn to appreciate yourself is through someone who cares about you, someone who is there for you. And on top of that, it was Garnet imparting wisdom on another fusion of a romantic pairing. There's really no question about it anymore. The show has done all but flat out confirm that Steven and Connie are in a romantic relationship, whether they realize it yet or not. The direct comparison between Ruby and Sapphire's relationship and Connie and Steven's relationship was just too plain here to ignore. And the lyrics paired with the imagery that they chose was just perfect. It was a perfect musical sequence. That if you are someone who can relate to the emotions that the characters are feeling, that some aspect of who they are might not be what it seems, might not be what they always thought it was. Or just if you have trouble appreciating yourself in general, you're going to feel the emotional impact of this song. If you're someone who is very empathic and is very good at getting into the heads of the characters, you're going to feel the impact of this song. In fact, I go so far as to say that this entire episode was just a vessel for this song, for the emotional impact that this song was intended to bring. As I said before, setting the foundation for this upcoming arc, where Steven has to come to terms with who he actually is and who he wants to be. And it's pretty clear at this point that Connie is going to be in some way important in that regard, that she is going to help him in that journey. Overall, not a very informative episode of the show. Like I said, if you've been paying attention, it didn't actually teach us anything about the characters that we didn't already know. Though the fact that Garnet can apparently meditate herself into the mindscapes of other fusions was kind of interesting. I'm wondering how she did that, but I'm going to do some thinking on that in my own time. I'm not going to discuss it here. But the more I think about it, this is definitely an episode that we needed to see. We needed to be in the same frame of mind as Steven to appreciate what it is that he's going through and what he's going to have to go through in the coming episodes. Guys, what did you think of this episode? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. Either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.
Connie, I'm bald!
Oh.